This week, we turn our spotlight to the Five Points Museum of Contemporary Art. Saturday, April 21st, Ann Harithus and the Five Points Museum of Contemporary Art present the 2018 Victoria Art Car Parade at 11:30 a.m. downtown on Main Street, followed by the opening of their new exhibit, Hot Rod Review. Carolina Estrain recently spoke with one of the artists featured in the show, photographer Owen Fisher.
So, Owen, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm originally from New York City. I've lived in Houston for over 30 years. I'm retired from a sales career with Eli Lilly. Photography is sort of been like a lifelong hobby of mine.
How did you get involved with art car?
I've photographed the art cars and art car events, as well as, a number of other things in Houston, such as roller derby and skateboarding. Those are some of the things I've photographed. I'm interested in art in general, so I visit all the museums. I got to know the people at the Art Car Museum, Noah Edmondson and his staff. The first show I did at the Art Car Museum was in 2014, and that was a show called Cuba Today. And it was basically about my travels to Cuba. I've been to Cuba 4 times now. So that was the first show I did. The second show I did at the Art Car Museum was 2017, and that was part of the Rat Rod Review, which included some of my car photographs from Cuba, as well as pictures I've done at roller derby.
So, Owen, what is the most, difficult part about photographing a car? Is there, a secret to it? What's your strategy usually?
The car pictures that you'll see in my show at the Museum of Victoria, those are Cuban car pictures. Basically, those are cars, from the night that were mostly American cars, but not all, that were made from the 1950s up to about 1960. You want to show like a point of interest. I look for the car in some sort of an interesting setting. In other words, it's the car, but it's also the environment at which it sits. So that's sort of what I'm always looking for. Is in the case of the Cuban cars have been photographed a lot, so it tends to almost become a stereotype. So what I look for is something that goes beyond that. In other words, the car with some interesting interactions with people around it, or interesting background. For example, like some of my favorite ones will show the car as part of a scene. For instance, I have one picture that will be in the show in which there's people playing dominoes in the background, and that's kind of significant because dominoes is probably the national game of Cuba. So I'm looking for the cars as part of a larger scene. I've got one picture that I really like that's it's called Muralando, and it's taken in the evening in a sort of an artist community where they have all these murals on the street, and then there's a car right in front of the mural. So I'm looking to combine the car with the environment and perhaps people interacting around it.
So it's more like an active player in the frame, not just...
Right. In other words, it's kind of like the car is interesting in itself, but we've seen the car many times before. It's not just, I see you've been to Cuba and saw some old cars. It's, what have you done with this? What have you done? In other words, how have you created an interesting image using this? I mean, that's the whole thing with anything. In other words, you don't want people just to react by saying, I see you've been there. When you photograph something that's a common subject, it's very challenging. You have to do something different. You have to bring some other elements into it, or else it's just, we've seen that before. I mean, I've been doing photography for 45 years. I've only done digital for about the last 5 years. Prior to that, it was film and darkroom, predominantly black and white film and black and white printing, also some color printing. But the digital is just really the last 5 years.
And it's definitely, there's no question that digital, it's better for what you're doing versus film.
Yeah, I mean, for traveling and so forth, it's a whole lot more convenient. Yes, no question. For the type of photography I do, obviously there's still a place for film photography, and there are people that are still doing it, and I think that's fine. But for the kind of photography I do, the digital is much better. It's just much easier, and it allows me to do more things. I basically converted totally to digital photography.
Is there anything that you're looking forward to in particular about showing in Victoria?
No, I'm just very excited and honored to be in the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I appreciate being invited.
Don't miss the 2018 Victoria Art Car Parade at 11:30 downtown on Main Street, presented by Ann Harithis and the 5 Points Museum of Contemporary Art, and see their new exhibit, Hot Rod Review. For To Do Victoria, I'm Russell Fowler.